You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning and welcome to Built on the Rock, a radio show dedicated to helping couples, dating, engaged and married couples to build their marriage on the rock that is Jesus Christ. I am Father Britto Berchmans here coming to you from my home, and I'm with Sandy Labouvie, our co-host, coming from her home. Good morning, Sandy. How are you doing?
Good morning, Father Britto. I think we were talking earlier about how much we appreciate technology and the ability to do this remotely as we are. So again, a big shout out to Brian and to Mike at the Archdiocese for helping us with this. Isn't it wonderful to be able to capitalize on our time like this and even be more efficient when it seems like there's just not enough hours in the day, right?
Yes, and thank you, Mike and Brian, our engineers at the studio, for helping us to do this from our home. I mean, if we have to drive to Chicago, half a day goes. And also if the weather gets bad in the next few months, we can still do it from our home.
So I think we were talking about that being one of the benefits from this whole coronavirus pandemic, right?
Yes.
We've learned how to do a lot of things differently. Some of those have been difficult, but this is definitely, I think, a blessing that has come out of COVID. Yeah, just think about your class that you taught the other night. You were able to do that remotely because you had just had a recent procedure done and you weren't allowed to drive. So that worked out well, huh?
Yes. Thank God for that.
Yeah. Anyhow, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, thank God. I mean, the only thing is, the doctors have put a few restrictions, which I'm certainly not very happy.
Oh,
I'm not allowed to drive, at least for a few days. Anyhow, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just have to be grateful that God is still keeping me healthy and going. So.
And on that note, speaking of grateful, we've got Thanksgiving coming up here shortly.
Oh, yes.
And what I just love that we have recognized this as a holiday that really encourages us and allows us to kind of step back from all the craziness of the day to day and focus on the things that we're grateful for. This should be a daily practice. For me, sometimes though, I know it's hard to do. You get caught up in the rigmarole and you keep doing and going. And sometimes to take that time back to be reflective and grateful is difficult. So I absolutely love this opportunity that we have to do that and to be surrounded by those we love as much as possible.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in India. I had no idea of Thanksgiving, but I've been here for more than 35 years and I've grown to love this time of the year, not only because of the changing of the seasons, but because of this holiday of Thanksgiving. I mean, believe me, I don't really care for turkey too much. I think other meats are more tasty, but I love the idea of people coming together, family coming together, friends, neighbors. I think we kind of take a break from all our division and everything and say, we celebrate, and thank God for our blessings. And especially in this country, we are so blessed.
Yes.
And I think it makes us think about our relationships. So I think our show is all about that, trying to help people to build their significant relationships on the right foundation, which is Christ.
Right.
So last show, we had this beautiful, wonderful couple that I really love, Bob and Patti. And so they gave us some great insights. Maybe you can bring us up to speed, Sandy, with the their story.
Yeah, for those who maybe weren't able to listen to the show, it's definitely one of those shows that's worthwhile to go back and listen to. We interview a lot of couples, and I have to say that Bob and Patti really brought a lot to the table. So by way of review, we know that they were two individuals from very different walks of life. They met on Bob's sailboat. Bob had invited Patti or I think maybe some mutual friends, but either way, this was where they first came together. And Patti very blatantly said it wasn't an instant attraction. It wasn't love at first sight. She actually said that Bob was snooty. She had mentioned how he had offered her a drink of beer or wine on the boat, and Patti declined the offer. And Bob remarked, well, would you like milk or soda? And Patti described that as Bob being snarky. But in reality, Bob thought Patti was being uppity by declining the drink. But from Patti's perspective, she wanted to make a good impression on this man, and she was concerned she may get sick, having never been on a sailboat before, so she didn't want to partake of the alcohol. So right out the gate, I mean, it's a funny story when you think about it, but it actually highlights, I think, something really important, which is how easily we misinterpret people and their actions, right? They very clearly had different reasons for this. Bob assigned a different reason to it than what Patti had. And it's just a really good example of how we have to be careful to jump to our conclusions about why those in our lives or those we love or those we are in relationship with are doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, but the thing is, imagine if a couple dismisses somebody because of first impressions. If only we would give them a break and allow them to, and look at this, those two gave each other that possibility to get to know each other.
Exactly.
And then they went to a wedding, right?
Well, I was going to say, on your note of first impressions, this is where it gets really interesting. And again, I just love Patti's candor and her boldness as she explains how it all evolved. So so Bob had invited Patti to a wedding, and when he came to pick her up, she said she was stunned at how he was dressed. She actually thought it was a joke because his clothes were so outdated in her terms. So this is when Patti learned, though, a very important thing about Bob that she ultimately fell in love with.
Yes.
And that is that Bob is not interested in the exterior of anyone. And in her exact words, he is just inherently a good person. I mean, what a beautiful thing. But we can come back to that. But while this was what Patti was attracted to, it was also a challenge, she said, early on, because to Patti, the clothing was something she wanted to address. So very early in their relationship, she went over to his apartment and she said she threw out everything, all of his clothes except what he was wearing, got rid of them. And then she took him to Marshall Field's, picked out a brand new wardrobe, told him to pull out his credit card and pay for it. And so what did he do? He did just that. And I just have to marvel at how this played out, because I asked Bob how it felt. And Bob, his first response was that he saw dollar bills going up in flames, remember? And then shortly after that, he had said he got over it. And I thought, that's interesting. So getting over it means there was something he had to get over, right? But so early on in their relationship, that wasn't a it was a challenge they had to overcome, but it wasn't a deal breaker. He had enough humility to let her step into his life in that way and to, in a sense, change some things about him. And Patti, kudos to her, had enough self-awareness, I would say, that she addressed this out of the gate. Because personally, I probably would have thought, oh my gosh, look what he's wearing. And I would have silently went to the wedding, Patti knew this was a sticking point for her and she addressed it. So there's so much just through that example. Don't you think, Father Britto?
Oh, I admire Bob. For someone who has just started dating, who comes and says, you got to throw out your whole wardrobe and now we're going to get new clothes. Some guys would react to that. But Bob was humble enough to say, okay. Obviously, he cared already for Patti that much enough. He said, okay, I'm ready to do this because this is important to me. They said, both of them said when we asked them, they knew what they wanted. They saw something in each other, right? And I think that was a big deal, that humility,
Sure. Humility, exactly. The humility, and again, I don't want to underemphasize Patti's self-awareness, because I think it's just too easy to get into a relationship with someone and not address these things, especially early on. She took the bull by the horns and said, we're going to take care of this right out of the gate. And I have a lot of respect for that. Yes, they talked about having to adjust to each other, and we'll get more to that later on. But if there are things that are that disruptive, tackle them, walk into those spaces together and see how you can handle that, right?
And I think that is a very important requirement in marriage, in relationships, yes. Honesty with each other.
Exactly.
Because if you do not address those problems, they don't go away. They only start making the relationship toxic.
Exactly. And so it does show Bob's humility. I think it also, are you okay, Father Britto?
Anyway.
It also shows Bob's ability to sacrifice. And as long as we're on that topic of sacrifice, do we still have a moment? I wasn't sure if you were indicating we need to get to the break yet.
We have a few more minutes before we come to the break.
Okay, so on this topic of sacrifice, I want to just highlight something else that came out in their interview.
Do you have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
We are at the Most Blessed Trinity Parish Food Pantry in Waukegan.
And here we care for people in need. There was definitely an uptick in the needs for services.
We doubled our volume after COVID hit, from servicing about 250 families a week to about 500 a week. We supply bread, tortillas, vegetables, milk, cheese, butter, proteins, fish, chicken, eggs.
Well, the Annual Catholic Appeal has been a tremendous help to us, especially over the past year and a half.
Without the Annual Catholic Appeal, we might have to close our doors. Our parish is the largest one in the Archdiocese, but is very poor. We think about food and we think about nourishment, but we also nourish the soul, provide that connection to humanity.
The good works here are made possible through the Annual Catholic Appeal. Make your gift at annualcatholicappeal.com.
Ancestry and genealogy are more important every day. People all over the world are wanting to learn more about their family heritage for personal and for health reasons. At Catholic Charities, we are hearing from adults who lived for a brief time at St. Vincent's Orphanage, the wonderful life-affirming agency that operated out of our headquarters for 91 years, serving thousands of women, children, and families until it closed in 1972. Our post-adoption services help adults who want to learn more about their experience at St. Vincent's. Our compassionate staff members provide whatever family background information they can offer, along with support and reunion services. To learn more, call 312-655-7093. That's 312-655-7093. The spirit of St. Vincent's lives on in the inspiring stories that continue to emerge today.
Welcome back to Built on the Rock. I am Sandy Labouvie here with Father Britto Berchmans, and we are discussing our interview from last month of Bob and Patti Nowak, a delightful couple. Before the break, we were talking about the sacrifices that you make in relationships, and I wanted to just quickly highlight another sacrifice, this time on Patti's part, as we talk about how their journey of love developed, right? How their relationship grew. So early on, Patti had met Bob right before she started law school. And her first year of law school was in Indiana at Notre Dame. So their relationship grew, and it was kind of a long distance relationship. They took turns visiting each other, but they realized at some point that they were meant for each other, in their words. And at that point, Patti then went ahead and left Notre Dame and came to Loyola to continue her schooling for her second and third year of law school. And it was between those 2 years that they had actually gotten married. So again, just the sacrifices we have to make when we end up in a relationship, that sometimes logistically there's things you need to do to invest in each other and help that relationship have its best chance of growing. So we talked about Bob's sacrifice with the wardrobe. I just wanted to highlight the sacrifice Patti had made too, in terms of relocation. That's a big one. It's a very big one.
Yeah, you know, when I talk to couples preparing for marriage, I insist on that there is no love without sacrifice.
Yes.
You see, what does the Lord say in the Gospel of John? There is no greater love than this, than for someone to lay down their life for their friend. When you marry someone, you're marrying your best friend, and you want to lay down your life for them. You know, because especially I think in our culture in America, children as young as 3 and 5 have their own room. From the time we are little, we guard our individuality, our autonomy, our space. But then when you get married, the two shall become one, the merger. And, you know, when you try to put two pieces of wood together, if you just glue them, they won't stay. You have to cut out pieces from here to make a joint. So when you marry, sometimes you have to cut out pieces of yourself. That is the dying, that is a sacrifice. And people don't realize what is sacrifice. You give up what is yours in order to make the other person happy. And you remember they told us another story, which I don't know if you were going to bring it up later, but I thought that was so apropos. Because Patti was taking care of her mom. And, you know, there were a lot of challenges. You know, her mom was elderly, and I think also she had some, you know, mental challenges and all that. And that was putting a tension in stress on their marriage. And Bob said that when Patti is affected, I am affected, our marriage is affected. Yes. So he offered to take Patti's mom to the hair salon. Gosh, that is the last place I would go. He goes there and sits there while she gets her hair done. I mean, this is what a great example of sacrifice.
Yes, I agree. I think another thing too, and it's more, I would call it prioritizing each other, which is what sacrificing ultimately does. Another thing I'd like to highlight is, do you remember when they talked about their date night? And how from very early on in their relationship, they agreed that they would set Friday night aside as their date night, no matter what. That was their night together. And interestingly enough, she said that it didn't include going out. They were to stay home and to spend time together talking with each other. I thought, how wonderful. I mean, again, without prioritizing your relationship like that, how does it grow? It's similar to what you say about our relationship with the Lord. If we don't spend time connecting with him in prayer, and how do we expect that relationship to grow? Same with couples.
Exactly. I mean, years ago, I heard somebody say this, and I've always remembered. He said, if you want to know what is really important to you, ask yourself how much time you invest in that.
Oh, exactly.
And, again, I tell couples that they should have a weekly ritual. What is that? Dedicate 1 hour, minimum of 1 hour, every week when you sit across from each other, talk to each other about each other. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying this because I've seen healthy couples like Bob and Patti doing this. They have quality, dedicated time. We talked about at the beginning how we are all constrained for time. And what gets lost, the most important things are relationships with God, with a significant person. So I think it is very important. That's a very important lesson for our couples. Find the time. Don't allow, everything else to take over your life and forget about this very important thing.
And as we were talking about just the other day, if you push that forward a little bit and think about what things will look like when you're looking back on your life someday and the decisions you've made, as you were just saying the other day, nobody regrets not spending more time at work, right?
Yep.
But the regrets that they do have are those relationships that they didn't invest appropriately into. Those are the things we carry with us.
Exactly.
So to think about that when we think about how we prioritize our time, hopefully will help us to diminish some of that looking back with regret down the road. So yeah, there were so many wonderful things that we had learned from Bob and Patti. I think another thing they had talked about was the fact that they were an older couple. And you would ask Bob and Patti if they feel that is a hindrance or if that was kind of a good thing. And Bob said right away he thought that was a good thing because you come into the relationship more mature and you have an idea of what it is you want. Patti, though, added to that, and I think it's fair as well, it also means you're coming in with some set patterns. And so there is extra work. Yeah, extra work that needs to be done for these couples that are a little bit more mature to reevaluate those patterns. And as Patti put it, to try to develop a new pattern together, right?
Yeah, and I think that is a very important thing. You should know what you want, what is important to you. I think especially sometimes younger couples can make the mistake of, I'll just go along and see what happens. And, but why not be serious? And I don't know, I read just the other day that Match.com did a survey and it was a very hopeful thing. They said that the younger people, because of the COVID, they have had time for self-reflection. They want to be serious when they date. They said they want to know, what is really important. So I think that is the important thing.
Right. I'm not sure where we're at in time, probably, but we have to give me a check here. Because there's more things, definitely more things we can discuss.
I know there is, I
didn't even
Catholic Charities in Lake County provides a comprehensive range of social services supporting individuals, families, and older adults. These include crisis assistance, shelter, clothing, family support, counseling, legal assistance, primary health care, and specialized services for seniors and veterans. Grab-and-go meals and food pantries help those who are experiencing food insecurity. Plus, we have a diaper depot to support low-income families and their infants. If we can assist you or someone you know, please call Catholic Charities of Lake County at 847-782-4000. That's 847-782-4000.
Welcome back to Built on the Rock. I'm Father Britto Berchmans with my co-host Sandy Labouvie. We are just talking about a wonderful couple that we had in our last show, Patti and Bob Nowak. And I think we've got some great lessons, Sandy, don't you think?
Yes, and we were just getting to the topic of faith and how important faith is in their life. They had met early on, realizing that faith was important to each one of them. Even though they expressed it very differently, it was very important, and they shared that. And Bob had even used the word glue, talking about it. He said faith is the glue that puts them together. And Patti had later on went on to say that without it, their relationship, she said, would not have been possible. So they talked a little bit about different ways of expressing their faith, and we've seen that with couples. They often do have different ways of expressing it. Sometimes they do some disciplines together, but I think the bottom line that we've seen consistently in all of our couples, as far as success is concerned, is the central role that they let Christ and their faith play in their relationship.
Yeah, and they said that going to Sunday Mass was a non-negotiable.
Right.
And they were always there no matter what happened.
Right.
And over the years, I've seen, Patti getting more and more involved. And, she can blame me for that, but she did so much for the parish. And she continues to be such a big part of that parish. And Bob, of course, always comes along. I think we are almost coming to the end of our show. So I really think, Sandy, we should try to bring this to a conclusion. And I know that Thanksgiving is coming in another week. So let us wish our listeners God's blessings. I pray that all of us will be aware of how merciful and bountiful God is towards us. And especially let us bless God for the bounty of this nation, and that this God will lead us, again, to be faithful to Him, and that we will embrace the values that He wants us to embrace in this country, so that we will continue to be the beacon on the hill. So I think it'll be good to give thanks to God as we conclude this show.
Yes, very well said, Father Britto. So maybe our listeners, when they have a chance, want to go ahead and listen to this song by Jim Reeves, which is what we wanted to close our time together with. Neither of us will sing, but I will instead read the lyrics, but I would encourage the listeners to play it. It might be something that touches their hearts. So in the words of Jim Reeves' song, we thank thee. We thank thee each morning for a newborn day, where we may work the fields of new mown hay. We thank thee for the sunshine and the air that we breathe. O Lord, we thank thee. We thank thee for the rivers that run all day. We thank thee for the little birds that sing along the way. We thank thee for the trees and the deep blue sea. O Lord, we thank thee. Oh yes, we thank thee, Lord, for every flower that blooms, birds that sing, fish that swim, and the light of the moon. We thank thee every day as we kneel and pray that we were born with eyes to see these things. We thank thee for the fields where the clovers grow. We thank thee for the pastures where the cattle may roam. We thank thee for thy love so pure and free. O Lord, we thank thee. Oh yes, we thank thee, Lord, for every flower that blooms, birds that sing, fish that swim, and the light of the moon. We thank thee every day as we kneel and pray that we were born with eyes to see these things. We thank thee for the fields where the clovers grow. We thank thee for the pastures where the cattle may roam. We thank thee for thy love so pure and so free. O Lord, we thank thee. So yes, everybody, happy Thanksgiving from us to you. May it be a time of great blessing as you embrace those things that mean so much to you and those people that mean so much to you gathered around the table. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving and God bless you.